Hi, I'm Emily Klonecki, Executive Director of Alignment Rockford. Our goal as a community should be for every child or young person to fulfill their greatest possible potential in our society. The information I'm sharing with you today comes from over a year of work behind the scenes. In 2022, Alignment Rockford identified trauma as a major barrier for student success in our strategic planning process. That process includes stakeholders from throughout different sectors of the community, and it involves looking at the underlying issues affecting students through the review of reports, the shared information from stakeholders, and the review of community data. What emerged from that process was a goal to address the impact of trauma on students' ability to learn and grow academically. From that time, we have been researching, talking to other communities, and probing to understand what reality is like in our students' daily life and how our community can make an impact on that experience. How can we, as a community, help our young people experiencing trauma to overcome these experiences, become resilient, and meet their full academic and lifelong potential? The health of a community is presented in the quality of its educational process and the outcomes of how the children of that society develop, adjust, and grow. The talents, skills, and contributions that each and every emerging young person can bring to their collective community is directly correlated to the quality of life, economic well-being, safety, and overall health of that community. As stakeholders in various positions of perspective across our community, we all have a vested interest in this critical issue. Wanting a great community to live and work in, we need the educational process to perform highly. We need great leaders, innovators, and well-equipped workforces today and tomorrow. That's why the community discussion around education is so often emotional and contentious. Historically, in our community, education has at times been a battleground, a war of ideas, a clashing of concepts and beliefs. This is to be expected in such a high-stakes issue. We as community members know that our success is inextricably tied to the success of our students. But we have had little or limited ways for enacting meaningful change in the stubborn statistics that we use to understand this space: our reading and math scores, our on-track scores, our high school graduation rates, and even our dropout rates. We understand an issue by the metrics we use to define it. Albert Einstein said, "If I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it." Once we have defined a problem, we have contained our opportunities for solutions. We have structured our innovative options. We saw on the last slide the metrics we use to define success in academics. Anchoring our understanding around these metrics, we can follow simple logical steps to identifying our problem. We can agree that healthy societies are created through high academic achievement. Then, if we follow that hierarchy of logic, we can also say that high academic achievement equals quality instruction. This premise climbs its own ladder: quality instruction equals good curriculum, etc., 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 with all the weight of the responsibility falling on the educational system, our schools, our teachers. In this model, the full responsibility for our student success is on one system, which leads to various frustrated systems blaming each other, acting in defense, and lacking in options for solving problems. We spend 1 minute defining a problem, and we have all the rest of time to be frustrated with the inability to find a solution. When new information is found, we have to look again at our problem. In recent years, and particularly post-COVID, there has been a growing recognition of the impact of trauma on students' lives and their ability to succeed academically. According to the National Center on Safe and Supportive Learning Environments, the majority of children in classrooms across the United States have experienced at least one traumatic event. The term trauma is used to describe an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on daily functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. 1 out of every 4 children in school has been exposed to a traumatic event nationwide. Approximately 2 out of 3 children has been exposed to violence, and 50% of those who were victimized report being exposed to more than one type of victimization. 1 in 6 report 6 or more exposures to violence. And what about our students? 42% of Rockford's violent crimes are domestic violence incidents happening in the home. Rockford Public School District had over 3,000 handle with care incidents in 2022, affecting over 2,500 students. These incidents were spread across buildings, across schools, and across our community. Over 600 of our students in this community experienced 2 or more handle with care incidents last year. These are reported, documented incidents of violent crimes to which the police department are called, and an RPS 205 student is reported to be present. These numbers do not represent the full picture, although they are staggering and unacceptable. They don't capture everything about what our children's daily struggles are, as they also navigate poverty, transient housing and homelessness, untreated or undiagnosed mental health issues in their home, and other forms of trauma, such as family separation, sudden death of close family members, and bullying in and out of school. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and other traumatic events can have long-lasting effects on a child's social and emotional well-being. While thus far our approach to measuring success in education has been in measuring academic outcomes, we fail to take into account the impact of trauma that adverse childhood experiences have in the ability for students to achieve these outcomes. Recent studies show that traumatic experiences in childhood diminish concentration, diminish memory, and disrupt the organization and language abilities needed for success in school. For many of our students, the effects of trauma will lead directly to decreases in academic performance due to inappropriate classroom behavior, difficulty accessing material and instruction, and difficulty forming relationships with the adults and peers in their school environment. Let's brush up on learning. According to experts, learning to read, write, take part in discussion, and solve mathematical problems relies on a set of underlying foundations: organization, comprehension, memory, the ability to produce work, engagement in learning, and trust. Critical to these foundations is the ability to self-regulate attention, emotions, and behavior. Also, trauma can interfere with the capacity for creative play, which is one of the ways that children learn how to cope with the problems of everyday life and integrate learning into real-life application. When we have new information, we have to look again at our original problem. This is a presentation about education, so let's work together on our logic problem. We agree that healthy societies equal high academic achievement, and we agree that high academic achievement is created by quality instruction. But we need to take into account our students' ability to learn from that quality instruction. How are our children arriving to school? Trauma. Trauma is not only an individual problem. It is a systemic problem because over different times in the past and even today, we have defined our problems incorrectly or designed systems on the wrong assumptions. The systems around our students are malfunctioning, and their failure collectively impacts the overall success of our community's youth. Let's look at the circles of systems around our students: their home life and immediate surroundings and family life, their school environment, their neighborhood, and their community. The impact of these rings around our students will either weaken their ability to learn or strengthen it. And each concentric ring impacts the effectiveness of the others. Where do you fall in this schema? You are probably in more than one area, possibly falling into one place professionally and another in your personal life or volunteer capacities. Maybe you are in all three. Maybe you are a business owner who tutors students in math once a week. But you are also a grandparent supporting your children as they support their children. So how do we, as parents, as players of various intersecting systems, work together to support our students? The healing-centered student approach to education. In a healing-centered student approach, the student is the central focus, and each system works to elevate the agency of that student. In this approach, we all share responsibility for our students' success among the systems in which they are living every day through a community framework. Every sector has a role to collaborate, cooperate, to share goals, to use shared metrics for success, and do their work in focused, equitable ways. Let's think this through. On the right side of this slide, you see three icons: one for the home, one for school, and one for community and neighborhood. Think about one of these areas of a student's life. As you're thinking about that, think about the different sectors who are playing a role in those systems. Who is responsible? How would we understand the needs within that area? How would an organization or agency or sector set responsive goals that align to the goals of the others? And how would they measure success? The healing-centered framework. The term healing-centered was coined by Dr. Sean Ginwright as an alternative to the trauma-informed orientation. As Dr. Ginwright describes, a healing-centered approach to addressing trauma requires a different question that moves beyond what happened to you to what's right with you. In a healing-centered orientation, individuals exposed to trauma are viewed and treated as agents in their own well-being rather than victims of traumatic events. The focus is in identifying and building on assets for growth rather than being responsive only to the deficits created by trauma. Based in resilience research that shows that individuals who recover from trauma and build resilience are those who have access to better networks of support and resources, a systems-based healing-centered approach seeks to shape environments through systems into networks of support and resource, therefore elevating the potential of all people interacting in those systems to thrive, grow, be resilient, and find empowerment. The core principles of a healing-centered framework are safety and trust, creating a safe and nurturing environment where students and their families feel valued, respected, and emotionally secure. Understanding trauma. Educators and staff should be trained to recognize and respond to signs of trauma in students, and they should also be supported in addressing their own trauma. and building their own resilience and strength. Building resilience. Developing students' social emotional skills, building self-regulation, empathy, and problem solving will help them cope with adversity and grow. Resilience should also be built in educators, family members, and the community members at large. And finally, we need continuity, a shared vocabulary, training, and communication between different agencies and groups working with students. A healing-centered framework that is only focused in the schools, however, will fail to address the scope of need that was previously identified in our logic problem. In Rockford, our healing-centered student support needs to wrap around our students in all areas of their lives: the evenings, the weekends, the summers, their neighborhoods, their families. Alignment Rockford, with a steering committee that includes the City of Rockford, the School District, Winnebago County Health Department, the Park District, Region 1 Planning Council, NAMI, and others, is launching a pilot in our community to change the story of education and outcomes. With this in mind, we developed initially a set of indices that measured need at the neighborhood level and at the school level. To understand the needs of our neighborhood, we looked at factors such as equity barriers, demographic data from census, vulnerabilities identified in the Early Development Instrument tool, the EDI, and the availability of resources and support at the neighborhood level. We also looked at numbers of calls for domestic violence over the course of 1 year and pre- and post-COVID changes in vulnerability. We also created an index to understand the needs of our schools. We looked at attendance, discipline factors, academic indicators, handle with care, student sense of belonging, and student sense of agency, along with other factors. We mapped the results from looking at these two indices of the schools and the neighborhoods that scored the highest, and we overlaid these maps and identified how to pilot our Healing-Centered Student Support project. The steering committee identified 7 schools to focus on for Healing-Centered Student Support: Lewis Lemon, Constance Lane, Rolling Green, Gregory, Lincoln, Risa, and Jefferson. Our team will become a school-based action team focusing on organizing support and resources specific to individual school needs and goals for student support. We will have another action team that will be the community wraparound team, focusing on specific geographic areas critical to the student bodies of each of these schools, and that is the attendance zones of the 4 elementary schools. Their work will be to asset map these areas, explore the shared data we have used to understand need, engage with families and residents, and align team members and community services around goals developed from that process. And now, here's the part where I tell you how you fit. You are the solution. Our teams will be having a series of listening sessions throughout these focus areas and the 7 pilot schools to understand needs, barriers, goals, and existing structures that will help to develop the efforts going forward. We need all sectors and all community members to be engaged in this work. Ways that you can join us are, number 1, to join one of our teams. Become a part of the Healing-Centered Student Support Coalition. In your work, prioritize the pilot areas with your goal setting for your institution or organization. And anchor your work or your charitable giving around shared data to set goals and measure impact that will affect our student success. We know that with this model, which integrates the schools, the community, and our families into the process of supporting education in our community, will result in the outcomes that we have not yet seen in Rockford: higher attendance, higher family involvement, improved academic outcomes, lower violent crime rates, higher teacher satisfaction, and a more engaged community. Join the Healing Centered Student Support Coalition. Use this QR code to access an online form to let us know that you want to be made aware of the next steps and incorporated into the shaping of the Healing Centered Student Support Framework for Rockford. We will contact you and integrate you into this work. We look forward to working with you. The future starts now.